Welcome again this week to the Basement Binge. We watched Inception, phenomenal movie. So I will start with my 2 cents of this movie in case you want to start the timer. Okay, so this movie, again, we said this last week, but it's a movie that you can watch over and over and over again and never, you always notice some new things. Like when we watched Spider-Verse, it was like, oh, I could watch this movie and know everything about it and notice minor details, but just enjoy it every time. But I feel like this movie, every single time you watch it, you notice huge details that give it more meaning or greater impact or something. I noticed the music a ton in this movie. Holy smokes, music just not necessarily on an emotional level, but it's just intense and fun the whole time. It's just fun to enjoy. I also think it's ridiculous how someone could come up with an idea like this. I've seen this movie 10 plus times and I still don't understand it completely, and I can't imagine how you would come up with that and be like, okay, I've got this idea and now I'm going to tell it through movie format in a way that makes sense to people, blows their mind at the same time. Oh, and I'm going to tell it out of order in a weird sequence, and I'm going to throw in little details that totally aren't necessary, but once you know what it means, it just adds greater depth to it. It's just how do you get to that level of understanding of what you're doing? It's just totally ridiculous. I don't know. It's amazing to me. So yeah, I love the movie. It's a pretty phenomenal movie. Really enjoyed it. So yeah, how much time do I have left?
You got 30 seconds.
There's so many things I want to say, but I don't want to ruin it for later. This time I really felt like I understood the laws, so to speak, of this movie, of the lore of the movie. But I will say I also finally found a theme for it. I always struggled to understand what is this movie trying to say besides this is a really cool idea and dreams are really cool, and what if you could manipulate them? It's just it has a meaning now, which I really enjoyed. It's just kind of the power in a positive way of guilt.
All right, that brings it to me. All right, so, man, holy cow, guys. I freaking love this movie. It's been since the day I watched it. I remember I was 14 or something when it came out. We walked out of the theaters, and we were all... I can't remember. It was a long time ago, but holy cow, it was so good. And every time I watch it, it's freaking good every time. I don't get it. It's always been in my top 3 movies since it came out. And even now, watching it, I get chills. I get so hyped. I freaking love that movie. But one thing that's so cool about it is, Harrison, you kind of mentioned, is that how it's all connected. Even just the whole movie is just a loop. They're talking about dreams or dream within a dream, but the whole movie, from the opening scene, it brings you back to the last scene, and it ties again all the arcs and themes of the whole freaking movie, and it's so well written. The dialogue, the music, it's just mind blowing. I freaking love it, and and it introduced so many different ways to film a movie. That just things just wow, that is really cool. I have no idea how they did it, but it totally works with the movie. And it had great moments of super funny, dope action. It was just awesome. And I love the feeling in it. The acting was great. I love all the actors, but how they really played and they even talked about how emotions will totally make a difference in how the people are in the dream and whether I don't know. It's so hard to explain, and so they really did a huge part on keying in on emotions, especially with Fisher and his dad, the relationship they had, and how he had to really they dove into that to really help him achieve Inception. So I don't know, it was super deep. I'm going way too deep here, but man, what a great movie.
Okay, here's my 2 cents. So one thing I wanted to first off, this is my favorite movie of all time. Really? Yeah, this is my favorite movie. I've watched this 6, maybe 7 times. There's one time where I actually watched this by myself at night, back when it first came out, and then I finished it, and it was 12:30 at night, and I just started the movie over again and watched it over again right after that, because I just love the concept. I've always loved the idea of dreams than dreams and that whole genre. So I'm obsessed with this movie. And so when I came into this movie for like the billionth time, I wanted to like look at the small minor details. And one thing I wanted to point out, and what I thought was so interesting when I first watched the movie was they started the movie of him on the beach, and I like when they showed it the second time of him on the beach, almost at the end of the movie, it clicked. Is that the water and the ocean, like the ocean coming to the land, is the connection between reality and dreams. That's what I feel like he wanted to make a point with that, and I thought that was so cool. I never noticed it before, because I've watched this so many times, and I feel like I was kind of nervous watching it again because I didn't want to ruin it, or if it was like be bland at all. But this time, I just realized something different, and it makes me love the movie even more because it did not get boring throughout the whole movie. It was just great throughout, and I have some other Easter eggs that I've been meaning to point out. But one thing I noticed that throughout the movie is that the imagery within the I got like 2 seconds. This imagery of the shots I want to talk about later, but awesome movie. Still love it.
Okay, all right. So 2 cents there.
Oh, that's tough.
Okay. So first, I say before we jump into all the fun stuff we noticed, let's just pick our poison. So I personally, obviously, hands down, would own this movie. Like, just because of what we talked about, the rewatchability of it. Like, not only is it a movie that you could sit down with your friends and be like, oh, let's have a good time. Let's watch Inception, and like the joy of just being entertained by the movie. Totally worth it time and time again. But also just like a movie that makes you think about like trying to understand the movie. But also now, something I learned this time, it's like a movie that makes me think about myself. So totally rewatchable. Movie that deserves to be owned.
Oh, yeah. I definitely second that. Picking my poison, I would own this movie. And this is the kind of movie you could watch like once a week, honestly. Every time I watch it, I pick up on different themes. And I think it's really cool is like talking with you guys mentioned things it just totally like went over my head. It's like, what the heck? So it's a kind of movie where like you could watch time and time again and you pick up on so many different things, and the way it's made, it's just like you could even just like totally take it for a way that they didn't intend it to be. So it hands down great movie. I do own this, so yeah, it's a great movie.
Well, you know how I feel, my favorite movie of all time. I recommend everyone to own this movie. If you rent it, I'm sorry.
You wasted your money.
You're wasting your money there.
You're going to just end up buying it.
Yeah, it's total buy for me. So
yeah.
Around the table, all of us want to buy it.
Okay, so just in case I forgot to mention, pick your poison as if you would, never see it again. 1, if somebody else, or 2, if somebody else had it and just mention watching it. 3, rent it. 4, own it. Whatever, kind of loose scale. Okay, so fun stuff that we noticed this time. I have so many, and I don't just want to dominate this conversation, but the first one that I just have to point out that I noticed this time, and now I should have written these down because I have so many that I can't remember, but one of them that I noticed this time was that I don't remember what I was going to say. Gosh, this happens every time. I'll just stick with this one that I remember that I wanted to reveal later. But Cobb's, or the totems, this is what it was. Like totems, I noticed this the last time I watched it, not this time, but I think it's cool. When Arthur explains what a totem is to Ariadne, however you say her name, is like a totem. I always thought it was like, a totem's supposed to help you know when you're dreaming. Like the difference between reality and dream. But he explains that a totem is so you know when you're not in somebody else's dream. Not necessarily just dreaming in general, but somebody else's. Because like your totem's a very specific thing. It has a specific weight, and it's unique in a way that when someone else would dream you into this dream and would dream your totem, they would dream it wrong.
Yeah, they wouldn't know how it works.
Yeah, they wouldn't know the specificity of it or uniqueness. So someone else got it wrong. I'm in their dream. So, which I thought was real because like Cobb it's not his totem, but he's constantly checking his wife's totem as if he's worried he's in somebody else's dream, which made me realize that like maybe he's worried about controlling his life. I don't know. It was interesting. Just that I noticed that the totems aren't necessarily dream versus reality, but it's somebody else's dream.
That's an interesting detail because I always thought like it's always to know just between reality and like a dream. And one thing I want, while you mentioned that, the totem thing, is that I heard about this Easter egg or this little reference from somebody else, and I wanted to find out. I never had the chance to actually watch it and look for it. And this time I was able to look for it, and it's Cobb's wedding ring.
Yeah, it's his totem.
It's his totem. And throughout the whole movie, I was looking for chances to like see if he was wearing it or not. And the first scene where he spins the top for the very first time, he has this gun when he's waiting it for it to topple. You look at his left hand, and there is no ring.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's reality right there. And then when he's talking to Ariadne at the cafe, and I'm looking for his left hand, and he's hiding it while he's explaining stuff. So like, then I realized like he hid it on purpose, like the director, to hide it on purpose if someone caught on about that, so that once he said, "Okay, where were we before?" that they. At the very end, once he finished explaining it to Ariadne, he uses his left hand, and you see the wedding ring. And it's like
I noticed the wedding ring when he's eating the soup in the very beginning too.
Yeah.
It passed by. I was like, "Oh, he has a ring on," but I didn't even make that connection. That it was his totem.
Totally in a dream, but you don't think about that in the beginning of the movie. But one thing I was like so waiting on is that last scene where he spins the top, runs over to his kids, and he just doesn't look back to see if it stopped spinning, and then it just cuts the scene. You don't see if it topples or not. And I looked for his left hand in that scene. It doesn't show it. It doesn't show his left hand, so you don't know.
Well, we gotta settle this before the podcast continues, so people just don't wonder it this whole time. So after I watched this like a month ago, the last time I watched it, I was like, I've got to know. Like, I've watched this movie so many times with unresolved thoughts about whether it's reality at the end or not. And so I looked it up, and Michael Caine, the guy who plays Cobb's dad. You know, the professor Alfred, as we all know him. So he was in an interview, and he was talking about when Christopher Nolan gave him the script. He's like, I'm kind of confused. Like, it's hard for me to tell what's reality and what's a dream. And Christopher Nolan came to him and said, if you're ever in a scene, it's reality. So confirmed by the director, Michael Caine, when he's in it, it's reality. He's in it at the end, so it's reality.
Okay. Because that's true.
Yeah. So we've settled that debate. It's reality. So get over it.
Michael Caine is the right totem. That's what it is.
Yeah, Michael Caine's a totem. He's always there when we need him.
Yeah, I mentioned this in the movie, but I don't know why, but I just thought this was really cool. Right in the beginning, when Cobb is like infiltrating, what's his name, Saito's dream.
Oh,
I don't know why, but this really just like I thought it was so cool. When he's like going around, like shooting everybody, like you could tell he's like training. You know, he's like catching like the shells out of the gun as he fires. I don't know. That was just so cool to me. That like if you're a trained like extractor, you're gonna know like your stuff and just like know how to go around and just I don't know. The way he planned out everything was so sweet. I love that.
Yeah. I also noticed this time watching it how like the movie follows its own rules. Like I always wondered when he's extracting the information from Saito and Arthur dies, and then like I was like, why is there a random earthquake and everything starts falling? And when Arthur wakes up, he's like, the dream's collapsing because he was the dreamer. So like and I was like, oh, like that makes sense. It's not just a random earthquake. Like dreamt reality is literally collapsing because the creator of that reality is no longer there.
And that scene of him at Saito's, quote unquote house, is that when he dumps him in the tub and he looks up and like it tilts and then the water comes out. I found out when they were filming that they had like 100 water tanks with like I saw a massive number of gallons of water, and they shot it through the windows in order to portray that he was going underwater.
That is awesome.
The level of like work that went into portraying the reality of said dreams is ridiculous. Like the hallway scene where Arthur is fighting in zero gravity when it's spinning. Like they built a hallway and spun it so he could run around and like choreographed him running around different parts of the hallway fighting this dude. Like,
yeah, you can't like that. You could tell it's all real. Yeah. Like all that fighting and if you watch like beyond like them like actually jumping around, you could see like tiny objects like moving around, like pieces of paper, the gun literally just flipping against the corner. Just as like the ground is it spinning, it's like you can't like
if you try to
do
CGI,
all that like CGI stuff.
All these different details that
you could tell it wouldn't be real.
Yeah. It makes me wonder, I don't know, but it makes me wonder how they did like the zero gravity scene in the hallway.
Oh yeah, and the elevator and everything.
Yeah, like how did they do that? Or like when he's like floating them around in the room, gathering them up. Like I don't know how they did that. Maybe just wires, maybe illusions. I don't know, but it's cool either way. Okay, so any other fun details? Because I feel like each time we talk about something I like wanted.
There's one, especially about the hotel scene, is that I didn't realize it until the last second. So when everybody was under and Arthur's are just standing watching around them, if you look back at that specific frame where he's looking around them, you look at the edges and it's blurry.
Yeah,
it's specifically blurry.
Why?
Because that's what it feels like when you're in a dream. The corner, there's no corner. It's like a square frame in a dream. It's all blurry in a dream, man.
It happened in a few scenes I noticed as well. Like every once in a while, like it almost like distorts it. Like it's almost kind of like you're watching a really old 3D movie without the glasses, but it's like also blurry, out of focus type of thing. Like it only happens a few times. It was in like that, and then like the only one that was like one with like Maul. I think when like Cobb was showing Ariadne his memories, I can't remember, but it happened a few times, and I was like, "Why is this happening?" Yeah,
it might have been that. I feel like that would have been there, but yeah, I noticed that. It's like what?
All right, quick thing before we move on. I don't know about you guys, but you know when that first kick on the bridge when he drives off the bridge, those 10 seconds were just like really quick, right? But the fall from the bridge to the water was like 2 hours. I don't know what you guys think. Like, it's like the whole movie is the last like 10 seconds of falling from the bridge to the water.
Yeah, seriously. Every time I watch, I'm like, how
Infamous man.
Because he's like, all right, so we have like an hour until the jump, and then like 5 seconds later, it's like there's the first kick, you know, when he hits the bridge, and then he's like, okay, we got 20 minutes before we hit the water, and then
I think that they like. I was thinking about that this time, and I was like, I think if I'm just justifying it, I think that like he jumped too early off the bridge, and so like that's why they weren't ready for it.
Well, yeah, I think so, because that second car that gets on the bridge, I don't think it was supposed to make it.
Yeah.
So he was just gonna go. It was gonna go up. And he was gonna wait.
Yeah.
The right time. Yeah, and then go off.
Out.
But this movie had so many twists and surprises. Like the whole time, watching it this time, I noticed like how many times this just throws you. It's like, oh, psych, this happened. Oh, psych, Cobb is he technically killed his wife. And oh, psych, you know, it's just like so many twists and you have no idea what's coming.
Oh my gosh, I noticed this time as well. Like I was thinking about it, and I kind of noticed the last time I watched it. But like the first time I saw this movie, it was like, oh, cool. It's just some guys that dream within a dream, and then they plant an idea in somebody's head, and they have a super sweet snow battle, boss battle type thing at the end. Like that's what I walked away with. And then the last time I watched it, I was like, oh, like it started because of an engineering like competition, like engineering companies, and then like they did this for the purpose of like, I don't know, like what is the word I'm searching for? Like capitalistic competition. And like that's why they were doing it. And then it's like, oh, and then while doing it, there's all of this like drama of Cobb dealing with his reality versus dreams. And then there's this complexity of having to bring another person along, and then randomly somebody got shot that wasn't supposed to, and then the sedative too strong so that they could go into limbo. It's just like every 5 minutes there's like something that complicates this heist more.
Let's go through this now, because I was confused and I still kind of am. What is each person's job in the movie?
Okay. So we got...
There's a list. They always mention a word name for everybody.
Yeah, so let's do Ariadne. She's the easiest. She's the architect. She kind of designs the dreams. Cobb...
He's just kind of like the mastermind of the whole thing?
Yeah, he's the extractor / the person who knows the most about Inception.
Yeah, the whole idea.
Like name him the extractor.
The extractor.
Yeah.
Okay, then we got Arthur, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who's kind of just like...
So they mentioned like he was supposed to do like the background checks and
like I noticed that this time that like when in the first dream when Fisher's subconscious was fighting back, he was like, oh, it was supposed to show in the research, and Cobb's like, well, why didn't you know? Like we weren't supposed to deal with it.
Like this is your responsibility. Like you're supposed to know the training he had and everything.
Yeah, he was supposed to know about the target. Kind of the logistics handler.
And then they also mentioned earlier with I forget his name, but like Tom Hardy, because he mentioned like that Arthur is like the best at what he does, you know, best in the business or something. So I think it must be that like he goes into like the subject's like mind history, I guess, just to find out whether they have training, like what it's kind of going to be like.
And also just like he's kind of just like an analyst, like learning how to drop people or kick people without gravity.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so we got him. And then we got Tom Hardy. What's his name? I love his name. What is his name?
It's
Eves. Yeah, I love his name. He's kind of just like...
Forager, that's what they said.
Yeah, forger / kind of like a thief. Like he can disguise himself as somebody else's subconscious member.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the other dude...
The Asian dude, Saito.
Saito,
He was the one that hired him.
Yeah.
And then,
Contractor dude.
yeah,
And then Yusuf was the
chemist. He
chemist.
built the
compounds,
yeah, so they could dream.
the sedative and everything.
And then Fisher, he was the target.
Okay.
And Maul is his wife.
All right.
Oh, and then, of course, I forget his name. The guy that Tom Hardy pretended to be.
Oh, Uncle Peter or whatever.
Yeah, Uncle Peter. He was just kind of.
So from what it shows online, that Arthur's job was the planner, the researcher. So he was more like reality planner.
Oh yeah, he's the one that he's the one that gathers his team.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Glad we got that aside. All right. What are we going into next?
Should we just fall in about it?
Yeah, there's a lot. I feel like we could spend so much time going into this, but
Yeah, we got to set a timer for ourselves so we don't go too long.
Okay.
yeah. I have something that's killing me right now.
Go for
So
it.
I absolutely love the line when Ariadne's talking with Cobb before, like when he kind of like confesses to her that like Maul is like still there and she's still like messing with him because she wanted to ask him, like, hey, can you check out the maze? And he refuses to look at it. And then so he kind of confesses to Ariadne like why he can't go back to the States and stuff. And he says like, oh, because they think I killed her. And then, they kind of finish the conversation. He says, thank you. And she's like, why? And he's like, for not asking whether I did or not. I think this is huge. It's the total arc of Cobb, of that guilt that he mentions it at the end too. No matter what he'd do, no matter if he was in a dream or in reality, that guilt is always there. What do you guys think about that?
So that was like, in my 2 cents, that was the thing that I noticed a theme this time. And because I want to just walk you through the process of how I realized this. They get into limbo. He takes Ariadne to like his house, and Maul's sitting there with a knife, and he like puts his gun down and lowers Ariadne's gun. And I was like, why? Like, just get Fisher. Like, get on. Like, hurry up. We're running out of time. Like, and and I was like, why? Like, why does he sit down and talk to her? He's had this conversation with himself in his head and in a dream with his wife. How many times now? How many times has he relived this reality? For years?
How long has she been gone? Not super long, right?
I think
He's been on the run.
for a year, a few years. I don't know.
2 years.
I don't know, something like that.
Okay, yeah.
A decent amount of time. Like, how many times has he relived this? Like, why again? Why now? And I was thinking about it. I think it's that he finally came to terms. Well, let me get back to that in a second. But he sat down and he talked to her about the guilt. And I noticed that, like, that is what was more powerful for him than a totem. It was more powerful for him than any perception that he gave himself of reality. It was the guilt that each moment that he would dream, whether it was a memory or a dream, that he was still married to his wife, right? He's wearing his wedding ring. He's with his wife, Maul. That guilt that he feels that he caused her death helps him remember that he's not in reality. And I think that's what allowed him to survive, so to speak, limbo the first time with his wife and not have to incept himself.
He mentioned that he knew he had to get out.
Yeah. And then also, like, when he goes and sees Saito at the very end, the reason that Saito didn't know reality is because he had lost perception of it in limbo. But Cobb knew because he had the guilt that was constantly reminding him, I have this guilt. What did I do wrong? And then he thinks about it slowly, kind of the way Fisher remembered previous dreams. And he remembers, I caused this to my wife. Oh, and because I caused that to my wife, I've been on the run. But then I got this job, and this guy promised I could get my kids, and I have to go find him because he died. And I think slowly, over years of being stuck in limbo, he realized what he was supposed to do, and so he was able to come back to reality because of the guilt. So kind of the theme I noticed is like guilt in a way is like a powerful driving force to create a better reality, so to speak, and to remind us of what's real and what's not, what's meaningful and what's not.
Yeah, and I think a big thing with it is, the whole idea of Inception is what caused that guilt, right? But, the whole plot line, the storyline is that he has to use that idea that gave him that guilt to get rid of you, to be able to accept, Maul's gone. I want to be with you, but you're not real. You're just a shade of who you were. So he has to use Inception to help out, what's his name?
Fisher?
No, Sato.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so he could get back home.
Yeah.
So what started it all was what ended it all for him.
Yeah.
So that was really...
I also think it's amazing that, like, in a way, so to speak, he, like, planted, not necessarily Inception, but he planted in his head, finally, the idea that he can move on from the guilt of his wife. which I thought was pretty cool. One other thing I want to say about that is I think it's really cool how, and I was thinking about it a lot, like, and I think it's kind of funny that at the end of the movie he comes home and we know it's reality because of what we talked about earlier with Michael Caine being there and his dad and all that and not having his ring on, whatever. And he spins the top to, double check that he's in reality because who knows these days? Because I also noticed his wife pointed out that, like, even in his reality, he's running from random militarized people, whether it's from an engineering company or police force, like, just like he would be in a dream running from a militarized subconscious. That I've noticed that his reality could seem a lot like a dream. So in addition to dreaming a ton and how that would confuse you, like, you go back to reality and the reality he lives is so much like the dream he lives. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. And he goes home, spins the top, and he leaves it spinning. He walks away from it and never checks it and just chooses to be with his kids and see what they're building. And I think that it's funny that so much of, like, pop culture got focused on, does the top topple or not? But I think Christopher Nolan was trying to say, like, he chose, whether it's reality or not, he chose to believe that he was home with his kids. He chose to accept that. Yeah. I think life can, in a way, kind of be a difficult thing, and at some point we have to choose our reality. What we choose to believe is our life. Not necessarily that we can have a dream that's different, but in a way we get to
accepting it for what it is.
Yeah, we get to choose.
Not trying to label it for something that it might not be.
Yeah, kind of control our reality, that we set a standard or an expectation for ourselves and say, this is what I choose to believe is my reality, for better or for worse. I don't know, I just think I noticed that this time that, we get so focused on, did the top topple or not, but maybe we should be thinking about what Christopher Nolan's trying to say about reality.
That's what I was kind of thinking about, because one thing I wrote down was that this might be a stretch or some sort of theory of mine, but this is what I got out of it was that guilt was always there, but whether it was dream or reality, and I feel like he knew whether his wedding was on or not. So he knew what was a dream and what was a reality. But I feel like, to me, my interpretation of him using his wife's totem whenever he wanted to know the reality, I feel like it wasn't for the purpose of knowing between what was a dream and what was reality. There's a point where he still missed her. He still missed being with her. And so he just kept trying to hold on to that. And so it toppled, and it's like, and it's kind of like a reminding him, like, this is real, like, she is gone. But if it doesn't topple, then, like, oh, she's around, and he misses her, he wants to be with her and all that stuff. And so one thing I thought was really cool, as at the very end, is that he spins the top, maybe out of habit, maybe just out of, like, one last time, and then he sees his kids, and he sees that's what his true goal was, is to be with his family. And so he moved on from spinning this totem of knowing, is she still there, moving forward to, this is what I believe in, this is what my dream is.
And that's also when it completes his arc, when he finally gets to see his kids' faces. Because he mentions earlier, like, he's talking to Ariadne when he's, like, in that prison of memories or whatever, on how he needs to get, like, flee the country, and time's running out. He wants to call out to them one last time to see their faces, and before he knows that they run off, and he can't. And that's when he chooses to leave Mall and go for he chooses to be with his family and be with his kids. It's the first time he could see their faces, because in Limbo, when Maul called his kids, he's like, hey, James and Philippa or whatever, he turns away because he can't accept that yet, because he needs to be able to move on from Maul to go back with his family. So,
And so going on, that was a good 2 cents you put there, but I want to go on, like, what Harrison was mentioning was that, like, a person can be stuck in the past and, like, check, like, is this like, they have a dream that they want to live, they want something, and that they can constantly check, am I living the dream right now? Am I actually doing what I want to be doing, what makes me happy? Or am I just going out, choosing something and believing that and sticking with it? And that's why I feel like, from the point where he's at the table spitting the top to where he moves on and hugs his kids, is that's him completing his story arc, but showing that's what, maybe a small message, what Christopher Nolan wanted to show was choosing a dream and believing it and sticking with it.
Yeah,
it's true. It may be off or different, but that's what I got out of it. I thought it was really cool.
I sometimes wonder, mean, maybe he said it in an interview that I just don't know about, but I like wonder what was the motivation for Christopher Nolan to make this movie. Like, yeah, of course he probably had a cool idea one day. With all the cool ideas, he comes up with like, oh, man, this would be way cool to like make a film about dreams being controlled and a dream within a dream. And I'm sure that was just like the coolness, the excitement about the idea. But I wonder, like, because I feel like good filmmakers always seem like they have something to say. Like there's an experience or belief that they have that they want to portray. And I often wonder what that is for him in this movie. Every time I watch it,
look at it backwards. Like, even they did that in the movie too. Is remember, like, they wanted to plant an idea in Fisher's mind to break up his dad's company, and they had to work backwards to the purest and like simplest form to help him think it was his own idea. You know, his relationship with his dad, on how he was disappointed he tried to be like him, and like maybe that's something like the directors. Like, I'm trying, like, Christopher Nolan, like, why would he do that? You know, like, obviously great idea, but yeah, we should definitely look into that and see, like, maybe what inspired him to, like, go with the way he did, like, make the movie the way he did. But
yeah, I mean, something you just made me think of is when Cobb is showing Ariadne, like, the prison of his memories, and he talks about, like, no matter what he can do, no matter what he does, he can't change these moments he regrets. Like, the moments of not seeing his kid's face, the moments of, like, when his wife commits suicide and all this stuff. And I think, if, like, I think about it personally, again, I don't know what Christopher Nolan was thinking, but this is, like, what I feel because of it, is, like, I feel like a lot of the times we make mistakes, there's moments that we relive in our mind that we go back, and no matter what we do, we can't change it. And, like, oftentimes it's hard to accept the reality that said thing that's causing us guilt is a part of our history. It's a part of our reality. That, like, you made a mistake, and you have to accept that, like, this, when my history is written, so to speak, this is a part of me. And I think that for me personally, it's sometimes hard to accept, you know, something I promised myself I would never do, or I never wished I have to accept happened. And I think we can get, like, caught up on that sad reality and the need to change that before we can go back to what's good and what's true. And I think that's what Cobb was struggling with. He had to accept that, as sad as it is, his wife committing suicide is a part of his history. And I think for a little while he got caught up in trying to change that part of his history.
Like, you wanted to, like, you know, turn the game off and restart.
Yeah, so to speak. Like, if I can fix this mistake and go back to my reality, you know, I can enjoy being with my kids. That I can't go be with my kids. I can't enjoy that reality until this problem is fixed, because this problem or whatever is messing with my reality. But I think we have to come to terms with our guilt and understand that guilt is what grounds us in reality, and say, you know, this is a part of my history, but I choose to believe that life can be good and life can be enjoyed outside of it, and you choose to walk away your perception of trying to control. I think what I was saying was control. You choose to walk away from what you think you can control. You know, you walk away from what yeah, I'm not very good at phrasing my ideas, because
like, you can't control what happens around you. So per se, a dream or reality, but you can control what you choose.
Yeah, like,
yeah,
like the totem, so to speak, the top. When he was in a dream, he could choose what was reality and what wasn't, what happened, what didn't. You know, he could remake memories, so to speak, and he chose to walk away from that ability to control what did and didn't happen, to live in the moment and accept what did happen.
And to go along with that, that's what I think that Maul did. You know, they're down in limbo, and she chose to walk away from the truth. Is that she couldn't stand being in, like, a paradise, pretty much, with her husband, building worlds and everything, but she couldn't stand the thought of doing that, but knowing in the back of her mind that was all fake. And so she chose to abandon that truth. And so then that, I don't know, I feel like that's just like the opposite of what Cobb did. And, like, you know, they still got to grow old together. They, you know, and Cobb even says that at the end, we had our time together. But yeah, it's just being basically like you choose what kind of happiness you want, what is your reality. You know, because we all perceive things different, and it's just basically how you want. So I think maybe that might be like a theme the movie's trying to go for, is that, yeah, we may all be living the same reality, but maybe for some people it's a dream, some people it's not, and you just get to choose what aspects you want to accept, and maybe other aspects are truths that you just don't want to accept.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting because, like, Maul, when she got back to actual reality after living in limbo for 50 years, she couldn't accept that their life wasn't as glamorous and as exciting as it was in limbo, I would think. And so she felt like life wasn't as good anymore. And so she thought that, I have to wake up from this bland reality to go back to what's better. And Cobb did the exact opposite and said, I have to wake up from this glorious reality to go back to what's bland, but what is real and what is meaningful. I don't know.
So what is more meaningful? Reality or some dream where it's glorious and grand? I think you could argue for either take on that one.
It's more perspective.
Because, some dreams are sweet. I wake, I'm flying around.
They asked that.
It's freaking, it's freaking awesome, but...
They asked that question. Better? They asked that question in the movie. When they're talking about the length, like the first dream is a week, second dream is 6 months, and the last one is 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, who would want to be in a dream for 10 years? And the guy responds, well, it depends on the dream.
Yeah.
So it's like people...
And they talked about that too when they go to the sedative guy.
Oh yeah, and all
those people, they go there, for 3-4 hours, but it turns out to be 40 hours for that one session, and they do it every single day. It's because to them, their life is now the dream. They go there to wake up.
They go there to go to life.
Yeah, and when they're not dreaming, they're technically sleeping.
Yeah.
Which is super. It's just a.
Which is like they've totally flipped it. Like when they're in the dream,
Paradox?
This is my reality, and then when they wake up, they're like, "Oh no, this is me just dreaming a boring life. I got to go back to my reality that's in the dream." It's so crazy. So cool. But I think that like at the same time, like I can't stop hearing this like phrase in my head, the dream life. Like who isn't striving to reach the dream life?
Just living the dream.
Yeah, like I'm living the dream. Who doesn't want to live the dream? So I think that, of course, you can totally make an argument for both. But I mean, I think maybe the ultimate goal is to be able to truly have both. Maybe your dream isn't perfect, but like he says, he couldn't dream up all the perfections and all the imperfections of his wife. That both of those is what made reality worth it. So maybe you can accept the fact of your reality, but it doesn't have to be bland. It can still be dreamy.
So do you think that has something to do with at the end when he says how Maul is just a shade of his wife? I don't know. What did you guys take from that when he says like, he's like, what does he say to her? He says like, you're not good enough.
Yeah,
you're just a shade of who you were.
Yeah, I think it's about like he's wanting his wife because Arthur mentions to Ariadne like, what was she like in real life, and he mentions she was lovely, and he goes back and Cobb goes back to the dream, wanting his wife back, missing her, but she's not as necessarily complete. She's kind of psycho in the dreams,
She's killing everybody.
She's weird, and she's killing everybody. She's on a killing spree, and so like it's not the same. And so I feel like she's like this shell where it's like, it's this dream, this memory of her, but it's not this complete where I can hold on to this dream of my wife. But the point where that's going to be different to where I can talk to my wife about anything and she's going to react the way she wants to rather than what I want to react. Is that having that raw conversation and relationship is, you can't dream that,
True.
Does that make sense?
Dream, it'd be how he'd want.
It's how he'd want. Yeah. It's what you would expect.
That's true.
Or what you would suspect. But when in real life it's raw, and so you can't control what what's the word, whatever else does, or what information you receive from just interacting with somebody.
Yeah, so there it is, that word control again. I think that this movie deals a lot with like the kind of the balance of dreaming and dreaminess and reality and blandness, for lack of better words, but also controlling and accepting. That like there's so much of your life that is gonna just be reality, we can call it, and there's some of your life that could be a dream and could be dreamy, and some of it you can control, and other parts of it you just accept. You like you were saying, Cade, like you can't control the way people react to all your conversations, but you can accept it, but you can control other things. I don't know. Thoughts? Kind of interesting. Yeah. Never really understood this movie, how deep it is. Like it was always just a movie about dreams.
That conversation was like, boy, this is getting real deep now.
Yeah, we could probably like watch this like next week and have a completely different podcast.
Yeah, I agree.
Like honestly, this movie is that deep, and there's so many different like underlying themes and arcs going on where it's like, what the freak isn't going on?
I would love one day if we have the privilege of sitting Christopher Nolan down with a fourth microphone and saying, why did you make this movie? Like, what was your motivations? What were you trying to tell the world?
What was your first idea?
Yeah, I don't know.
Did you dream about this?
Did you dream about this? Was it dreamy or was it reality? Did you control it or did you accept it? Is it a camera that's out of film? Yeah, I don't know. Crazy movie. It's tons of fun.
It's a blast, yeah.
Oh, also, music in it, phenomenal.
Oh my gosh. I have the soundtrack on my phone, and sometimes I just listen to it for fun.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh. You get so... it's so good. And it sets the tone for the whole movie, too, in different moments and stuff. It was awesome.
And like, we were watching, on a cheap TV, and, well, not cheap TV, but, just TV speakers. And, like, sometimes the music was like so loud, it was just like, and I'm like, I can't hear anything they're saying, but it doesn't matter because I'm just enjoying the. Oh yeah, great. Any last words?
I'd say the last word is like, I love this movie so much. I actually I did a project on this in college. Like. That's how much I love this movie.
Yeah, so everybody go buy this movie because that's what we rated it. Yeah, seriously. And then also subscribe to our podcast everywhere that can be done.
Basement Binge, everybody.
All right. See you next week.
Take care.
Ciao, ciao.